All right, here's the second portion of bureaucracy. So we're going to look at how Congress can use its oversight powers in relationship with the executive branch. So another check. Also look at how the president ensures the executive branch, all those agencies and departments, actually carry out their responsibilities because the president will have goals for that administration and in the end of the day is responsible for the implementation of a lot of those policies. So laws that have been put in place to restrict the bureaucracies and those individuals working within them, within those departments and agencies. In 1939, we have something called the Hatch Act, and what it did initially was prohibit from them requiring bureaucrats, individuals working in those agencies, requiring them to donate to political campaigns. At times, they would make the people working in the executive branch donate. Now it's more used for making sure that all federal employees, except the president and the vice president, making sure those federal employees are neutral and non-political, not supporting candidates and a side. We also have something called the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, and this is used for a lot of times media and individuals. If they would like to look at documents, government documents, they can do so. They just have to file that Freedom of Information Act information, and they can get some information, documents from the government. Laws that protect bureaucrats. So bureaucrats are working within the federal government every day. They see a lot of different things, and in 2007, the Whistleblower Protection Act was put in place, and it protects any employee who finds something that they feel is dangerous, illegal, improper, any activities done by other employees. They can report this without their name being known. So it helps maybe ensure that the federal government isn't acting inappropriately. Another thing that Congress has over these departments and bureaucracies, they have oversight. First off, we have the Appropriations Committee who deals with all the money, and they decide who gets the money. So they decide within the budget what departments are getting what type of money and how much, and they tell them how to spend it. Congressional investigations and hearings as well. So Congress is always looking at different things and seeing if it's implemented correctly, and then they can investigate, bring people in, see what is going wrong with certain departments. They can also disband bureaucracies. They get rid of these departments. They can reshuffle and reorganize them. And in the end of the day, too, the leadership, it has to be approved by the Senate. The president also has a huge influence on the bureaucrats and the bureaucracy. They are the head of the executive branch, and they appoint all the top leaders, and they can remove those top leaders. So the top leaders they're in charge of, and they can remove those individuals. The leadership and the top bureaucrats have extra leeway sometimes, though, because Congress and president can't really oversee everything. So again, they are appointed, and they can then kind of run their departments the way they would like. But again, they must follow the goals, hopefully, of the administration. And if they don't, that could lead to their termination. Also, sometimes a regulatory agency, so what an agency is really supposed to do, maybe it's hijacked by those who are actually in charge. For example, if it's the Environmental Protection Agency and people are put in charge that don't believe in certain things, maybe they pull back some regulations, and it's actually reversing some of the policies that were put into place. Again, sometimes also the presidents have trouble controlling bureaucracies. There's an example under President Carter where there was actually a mice problem. So there's two different bureaucracies or departments that were kind of in charge of the White House, and the General Services Administration and the Interior of the White House, and they both told the president, or the General Services Administration told the president it had eliminated all the mice that were inside, and insisted that all the new mice had come from outside the building. So this was now the responsibility of the Interior Department because they managed the building maintenance on the outside. The Interior said that its hands were tied because, Yes, the mouse were outside, but now they were inside, so it was out of their jurisdiction. The pest control problem kind of like came to ahead when eventually some mice were running across the president's desk. They could smell the dead mice, and the president basically said, "You guys need to solve this problem, or else you're being fired." So it took about 2 months. They said about 60, 65 mice were caught before they kind of figured out the problem. So, work with these bureaucracies and with Congress, we also have interest groups. So, what is created here is the Iron Triangle. So, Congress, special interest groups, which have lobbyists, and the bureaucracies are all related and they all work together or against each other. These iron triangles are dependent on each other. So these three areas are dependent on each other. And in Congress, it's specific committees or subcommittees. So basically, agencies need advice from interest groups. The departments need these advice from interest groups, research, and what a policy would do. Interest groups need the committees in Congress to make legislation in their favor. So that's where we get all the money to politicians and to influence their decision making. And committees also need technical advice from the interest groups. So again, research and what would happen if we do pass this law or regulation. They're independent of each other. However, it's tough to not work with one each other. And once those iron triangles are created, it's hard to get rid of them. Some argue that they're being replaced by these things known as issue networks that focus on more policies. So there's a lot more individuals and things like media and outside organizations that are involved, and those are called issue networks. So if you look at an example here, this would be kind of like a national security iron triangle. And within that issue network, sometimes outside of the congressional committee and the interest group and the bureaucracy, you have think tanks and news media and culture and professors and individuals at universities. But within this iron triangle, so you have Congress who has the money and they get to approve the budget that goes to the federal bureaucracy. The federal bureaucracy can create these regulations and enforce these regulations on the industry. And again, these interest groups would lobby and campaign and give money to congressional individuals that are in their favor. Going the other way, Congress is very friendly, possibly, and creates legislation, maybe does some oversight to help support these interest groups. Interest groups support the bureaucracies by supporting individuals within Congress. And bureaucracies can help support Congress by maybe being pork-friendly decisions or helping with the implementation of these policies. So your goal then is to create your own iron triangle. You're going to use the bureaucracy that you chose in the previous homework assignment and find and connect a committee or subcommittee that is related to that bureaucracy, and also find an interest group that is related to that bureaucracy. And you have to provide examples and have an explanation of how they work together. Be specific, don't be vague. Be specific on your interest group, your committee, and your bureaucracy and how they work together, both ways. Use the instructions in Schoology to help you do that.